Okay, so you know how those little details in a shop or a restaurant can really make a place feel different?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Well, you sent over some really interesting stuff about something called table posies.
Eyes.
And we got kind of fascinated by this idea that these like small flower arrangements could actually be a smart business tool.
Right.
We've got an article explaining them and also some background on Annie Zhang, CEO of Sweetie Gifts.
That's the one.
So yeah, our mission today is basically to unpack this. What are they and why might they be a clever move for businesses?
And it's interesting because the core thing they seem to address is it's a real challenge, actually.
Which it?
Well, how do you make a space feel better? A busy cafe, maybe a quiet spa using flowers, that touch of nature everyone likes,
Right.
but without all the hassle.
Okay.
Things getting in the way or the cost, the upkeep of traditional big arrangements.
Yeah, that's a really practical point for, well, anyone running a
It
business.
really is.
I mean, you've probably experienced it, right? Trying to talk across a table with this massive bouquet in the middle. Beautiful, sure, but...
Blocks the view.
Or picture a busy hotel front desk. Staff are already rushing around. They don't have time to be constantly checking on flowers, changing water.
Exactly. Fussing over wilting petals.
So that's where this table posy idea sort of slots in.
Yeah.
Okay, let's dig into that. What is a table posy exactly?
Okay, so fundamentally, it's a floral arrangement made specifically for tables.
Right.
The key things are it's low, so it doesn't block your view across the table,
Hmm.
and it's designed to look good from all angles, 360 degrees.
Ah, okay. Not just a front.
Exactly. There's a big focus on symmetry, neatness, proportion, keeping it balanced.
And the goal is?
The goal is really to bring a bit of atmosphere, maybe some elegance, some warmth into places like restaurants, hotels, spas, even shops.
But efficiently.
Efficiently. That feels like a really important word here.
It is. Because my first thought might just be, oh, it's just a small bouquet. But the
Yeah.
material you sent makes it sound like it's different, distinct.
That's a really crucial distinction, actually. Think about a typical bouquet, right?
Okay.
Often different heights, quite an open shape, maybe a bit wild.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it has a definite front, especially if it's a gift.
Yeah, you hold it facing outwards.
Right. A posy, though, is much more uniform. All the elements were kind of tightly arranged, and is meant to be seen from everywhere.
Compact.
Very compact. Sits neatly on the table, complements the space. It doesn't dominate it like a big bouquet might try to.
Okay. So it's a more sort of refined solution where the form really follows the function of being on a table?
Precisely. Form meets function.
Got it. So we know what they are, their purpose. What about the specifics? What do they actually look like? What flowers, what leaves are people using?
Well, the article pulled out some common choices, and it's interesting why they're chosen.
Go on.
Things like preserved roses, hydrangeas, and Austin roses pop up a lot.
Austin roses, they sound nice.
They are very sort of romantic, lots of petals. And the key thing, especially with preserved ones, isn't just the look.
Mm-hmm.
These types hold their shape well. They last. Longevity's huge, especially if they're preserved.
Right, makes sense for a business. You don't want drooping after 2 days.
Exactly. Then you have the other bits, preserved moss, eucalyptus leaves, maybe baby's breath, tiny ferns.
Fillers and textures.
Yeah, they add that visual texture.
Yeah.
And they can set a seasonal tone, too.
And you mentioned the foliage isn't just filler, it has a job to do.
Absolutely. It's structural sometimes, helping the whole thing keep its shape, but it's also aesthetic. Like silver dollar eucalyptus gives great visual contrast, nice color and shape.
Okay.
And if you were using fresh, some foliage can even, subtly freshen the air.
Yeah.
But with preserved greens, their main job is reinforcing that shape, giving it stability, especially if it needs to last months.
And it's not just the plants, is it? The container, the pot or vase,
Right.
the vessel.
Yeah.
That plays a big part too.
Oh, huge part. Yeah. The vessel choice completely changes the look and feel and how it fits in.
Like what? What are the options?
Well, you could have miniature ceramic pots. Very charming. Great for maybe a cafe table or a little boutique counter.
Cute, yeah.
Or glass domes. They add a sense of formality, maybe a bit more elegance. Think fine dining. Or a hotel suite, perhaps.
Okay, more protected too.
Then there are things like clear acrylic cubes or trays. Very modern, minimalist vibe.
Sweet.
Or you could go the other way, use natural wood or stone vessels. That gives a more organic, earthy feel. Good for, say, an eco-brand or a place with a rustic theme.
So the vessel affects the height, the stability.
Yeah.
how it matches the decor.
All of that, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a key part of the overall design.
Okay, this feels like it leads naturally into a really big point for any business owner listening.
The comparison.
Yeah, the fresh versus dried versus preserved flowers. That table in the material was quite revealing.
But very clear, wasn't it? Lays out the pros and cons.
So fresh, obviously vibrant natural scent, but
Short lifespan. Need constant care, water, trimming.
right, dried flowers.
Dried can be lovely, that rustic look. Less care needed than fresh, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But they can be brittle, maybe lose color, not quite that alive look.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to preserve flowers, which, well, they seem to hit a real sweet spot, particularly for commercial use.
How so?
They look incredibly lifelike, often keep really rich colors. They last a long time. We're talking maybe a year, even 2 years.
Wow.
And the maintenance is, well, almost nothing.
Yeah, that's the kicker, isn't it? No daily watering, no trimming, no need for fridge space.
Exactly.
For a business, that must immediately mean lower labor costs, less waste.
Huge. Absolutely huge. And the info from Sweetie Gifts, they really hammered these points home.
They did. As specialists in preserved flowers, they see these posies as a really strong option for businesses.
Totally. The lower long-term cost is obvious: no water, no fridge, minimal staff time.
Right.
But they also mentioned something I thought was really interesting: customizing the scent.
Oh, how does that work?
Well, because they're preserved, you can apparently infuse them subtly. Imagine a hotel using a faint lavender scent in their lobby posies,
Calming, yeah.
or a restaurant with a hint of citrus, maybe, to match the food. That's quite a sophisticated touch for branding, for the whole sensory experience.
That is clever. And you also mentioned predictability. That sounds important for, like, chains or franchises.
Very important. With preserved, you get much more consistency in the product. The supply chain is more reliable.
No worrying about seasonal flowers being unavailable or batches looking different.
Exactly. Businesses can order in bulk, store them easily, roll them out across all their locations, and know they'll look the same.
Maintaining that brand look and feel.
Which is critical if you've got multiple sites and want that consistent visual standard.
Okay, so if a business goes for these preserved posies, what's the reality? How long do they really last, and what care do they need?
The material suggests typically 12 to 24 months, which is pretty amazing.
A year or two.
Yeah. And care is super simple. Basically, avoid strong, direct sunlight that can cause fading over time,
Okay.
and keep them away from high humidity. No watering, no misting.
Right, definitely no water.
Just a gentle dusting now and then. That's it. And probably best not to move them around too much, just to keep the arrangement intact.
Couldn't be much easier, really.
Pretty much maintenance-free.
Okay, let's talk a bit more about Sweetie Gifts and Annie Zhang then, because it sounds like they're not just selling flowers, they're positioning themselves as experts in this specific thing.
Absolutely. The background info really highlighted their focus on preserved florals,
Yeah?
and they have their own manufacturing bases in Kunming and Yiwu.
Ah, so control over production and sourcing.
Yes, control over quality. And Annie Zhang herself, well, 20 years in the flower industry.
That's a lot of experience.
It is. Deep understanding of the markets, both in China and globally. Apparently, she regularly visits markets, talks to customers: U.S., Europe, Australia, Japan, South Korea.
So she's got her finger on the pulse of trends everywhere.
It seems like it. Which is valuable, right?
Well, you
They're
see
not
that.
just stuck in one viewpoint. They're seeing what works in different types of businesses, different cultures.
Yeah, that global perspective must be a real asset.
And Sweetie Gifts really plays up their experience with customized B2B orders.
We knew.
Meaning they get that businesses have specific needs. Maybe branded packaging or certain types of vessels, or they want seasonal themes reflected.
Right, tailoring it to the brand.
Exactly. Plus, they seem set up for efficient production, handling large volumes if your company wants to put these posies in, hundreds of locations.
So they can scale up.
Their whole pitch seems to be about providing something that's, yes, beautiful, but also commercially really practical and smart.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, it genuinely sounds like these table posies, especially the preserved kind, offer a pretty compelling package for businesses. A strategic way to enhance the look and feel of a space.
Yeah, they're subtle, but effective visually.
And they tick a lot of practical boxes.
Yeah.
Cost, low maintenance, consistency.
That sums it up perfectly.
Right.
It's that sweet spot between wanting beautiful decor and needing it to make business sense.
It really seems like it.
Yep.
So maybe a final thought for you listening. We've talked about how these small visual details can have a surprisingly big impact, right? That subtle power.
Definitely.
So Thinking about your own situation, your own business or context,
Mm-hmm.
how could a really well-chosen table posy, something elegant but also, unobtrusive, how could that subtly lift the experience you're offering?
It's a good question. Makes you think about those details.
It's definitely something worth considering, that small touch.
Absolutely. The power of the small, well-thought-out details.
Yeah.
It shapes how people feel, doesn't it?
It really does.